to tell us more about the U.S. elections. Ayotunde, thank you so much for checking into the program.
Thank you so much, Temitokwe. I'm very happy to be here, of course. So we're all excited, for those of us who are covering this election, historic as it is. And yes, here in Washington, D.C., we're still keeping our fingers crossed to know exactly what the eventual outcome will be. But from what we've been seeing so far, it will appear that Donald Trump seems to be having a slight edge at the moment, particularly in some of the battleground states. But of course, we can always say that it's still too close to call at this point. Definitely, there are 50 states, and at the end of the day, today, tomorrow, definitely the picture will become a whole lot clearer. But for now, the Republicans seem to have a slight advantage. But notwithstanding, of course, the Democrats are also still hoping that the tide will turn at some point. But definitely, it's been a very historic election indeed. And earlier on, I was listening to some of the conversations, and you would, marvel at the way the American voters really were able to comport themselves, even though the campaigns were not so fantastic, if I may say, mudslinging, attacks on personalities from the two main candidates. But, the voters feel they have the ultimate say in this one. With their ballots, they can go to the polling stations and, of course, cast their votes. They are making a statement, and definitely they will have the final word at the end of the day. So, whichever way you are, or whichever side you are, perhaps you're a supporter of Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, at the end of the day, you will have to make a choice. So it's really been an interesting one, and we're waiting to see what eventually will be the final outcome, particularly here in Washington, D.C., which, of course, is the seat of power. Temitokwe.
Well, Ayotunde, Temitokwe will come to you in a moment, but then I would like to find out if we could have some specifics. Remember, moments ago, we spoke with your crony, Doug, and he gave us the figures, like, 25 out of 50 states, and at that point it had gone like halfway, and we had Trump leading with 140 electoral college votes to Clinton's 104. What has changed between then and now?
Well, it's still very much the same, I can tell you, Charles. It's still very much the same. Nothing has really changed, like you rightly pointed out. So that was why I said it still appears that at the electoral vote, of course, it's still something that Donald Trump, if he's watching wherever he is, watching the way the results are coming in, he will be confident, at least up to this point. But like I said, it's still not over yet. It's still a long way to go to really decide eventually how this will pan out. The tide can turn at any moment in time, but it's still the same from what we are seeing at the moment. No changes yet at this point. Charles?
Now, the whole of, I beg your pardon, the whole of this campaign, Donald Trump was very active on Twitter. If he wasn't pleased about anything, he would most likely tweet it, to let people know what he's thinking at that moment. So throughout this counting of votes, and as the results are trickling in, has he been active on social media?
Well, it's really hard to say. I wouldn't want to say that he's been active on Twitter. Don't forget that in one of the campaigns, just before the election, the U.S. President Barack Obama, at one of the campaign rallies, made a statement. It kind of like a joke, perhaps you would say, where he said that the campaign team of Donald Trump had gotten so amused by some of the comments that he's been making in recent days leading up to this election. So they had to just take away his Twitter from him. You know, he had no access to Twitter. And of course, President Barack Obama was saying jokingly that if you can't control your words on Twitter, your opinions on Twitter, then how will you be able to control the nuclear codes or even handling the big job of becoming a U.S. president? But that aside, definitely we know how these social media platforms can be very, very powerful and important, and when it comes to getting messages across, you know, because so many people all around the world are definitely reading, they will definitely pick up these messages, and you know, it travels so fast that whatever information is sent out, you know, most of the time you tend to believe some of these things. But really, as it is, we're still depending. Of course, everyone would definitely want to still depend on what is coming out from the news sources, the Newswise, the reporters, journalists, you know, media organizations from around the world who are actually covering this election. So at this point, we really can't depend on whatever is being said by any individual at that on Twitter. We have to stay with the important messages coming out from the mass media, the foreign media, and of course other Newswise that are covering this event. Temitope.
Well, Ayotunde, I'll say you've addressed half of the question I wanted to ask, because you've talked about the social media, but then I actually wanted to ask what has been the role of the traditional media in the conduct of these elections, voting patterns and stuff like that.
Yes, it's been very, very important. It's been very powerful. I mean, it's been able to help the voters, even non-voters alike, to really keep tabs, keep themselves updated on what actually is going on as we speak in terms of the election, the process, the campaigns, you know, the several months of campaigns of the two candidates, even up till now, where the results are being collated in this U.S. presidential election. A lot of people definitely have been informed. Some of these messages, of course, coming from the media, the well-trusted ones, of course, where people can definitely get updated and get information. And I can tell you, even now as we speak, you know, it's been buzzing. You know, the social media has been buzzing with loads and loads of information. So they've really had a huge role to play, definitely in this U.S. election. And I can tell you, even afterwards, we'll still be seeing more coming from them as well. So it's been a wonderful experience, definitely, from the social media. You can't really roll them out at events like this in historical occasions that are happening, that is happening right now. So they've been very, very up to speed and up to date. Charles?
Thank you very much, Ayotunde, for that update on the situation in Washington, D.C., and of course the perspective across the United States of America. Well, certainly day it has been, and we will be returning to you when, well, should I say, at the appropriate time. Thanks a lot.